Hi everybody from a beautiful evening. I've just finished up work. I've been going for it down in the garden for the past couple of days, and there's loads to share down there. And I've also been working on the Craic Shack, and I don't have as much to share on that, but I did prove my concept for an idea that I was sort of stressed out about a little bit. I think it's going to work, and you'll see that in this video as well. The weather's been great. I'm feeling really motivated at the moment, and I just feel like I'm plowing through the work. So there's lots to share in this video, and I hope you enjoy it. Hello from another beautiful day. It's basically been perfect weather for about a month, and I've really enjoyed taking advantage of it in the garden and just being outside and getting stuff done. It's been absolutely wonderful. I feel like I'm always talking about how each and every season is my favorite season, but this one is definitely, I think, the most exciting because I have so many plant babies on the go and they're all starting to come to life. It's always a little nerve-wracking when you plant the seeds and are waiting for them to show any signs of life whatsoever, but we've got some stuff coming up in this tray. These are cucumbers. And over here, it's gone crazy. We've got loads of tomatoes coming up. The flowers are doing really well. Some cucumbers have come up as well. The butternut squash seeds that I saved from last year, they're coming up too. And the thing that's causing the most panic, the thing that is the biggest sense of urgency is the sunflowers, which are going absolutely crazy. And my goal for today is to make a bed for at least some of these to go into. I've also started repotting things, and I'm limited by how many pots I have, so I've actually put a call out to people in the community, and I have a few different friends who have spare pots going, and that's good because I'd much rather reuse these plastic pots than have to buy some more. And it's going to be nice to be able to repay them with some seedlings of maybe unusual tomatoes or something like that as soon as the seedlings are big enough to be repotted. And in other exciting news, the corn is also popping up, and this is probably the thing I'm most excited to grow, and so I'm happy to see signs of life there. And then I have some more sweet corn over in these two pots, and it looks like we've got a little bit of life happening there. Then more seedlings of sunflowers to cause more panic, but I'm going big on the sunflowers this year, and I think it's really going to make my garden something very beautiful. So it really is a wonderful time of the year with everything springing to life, the trees starting to bloom, and the seedlings turning into little baby plants, and the garden is always a blank canvas at this stage, and so it's really exciting to just plan things out and to get to work. And my first order for the day is to get rid of this tree. I've never really loved it. It's okay, it's good for privacy, but it doesn't give fruit, and I feel like because my land is fairly limited with space, if I'm gonna have a tree at a prime location like this, I want it to be something that's gonna produce fruit, I think, especially since it's in the garden. But Sinead has loads of space at her place, and so I'm going to chop off all these shoots, dig the tree out, stick it in this pot, and it's going to go down to her place. And then I'm probably going to pull out this dead lavender. I don't think it got enough water last year, and I also gave it a really ridiculous prune, which it might not have liked. And then once all this stuff is removed, I'll have loads of space to put a whole bunch of those sunflowers into this bed, and then it's going to make an awesome, beautiful wall of sunflowers later on in the season. At least that's the idea. First up, let's get this tree out and into the bucket. So I don't actually know what this tree is. I got it from a garden center on the advice of a friend a long time ago, and what I was looking for at that time was privacy, so suppose it does give that, although it wasn't particularly fast growing. So my idea is to try to just dig it out, but first I'm gonna give it a little bit of a prune. Got these shoots down at the bottom, just so I can better see what it is I'm actually trying to do. So the tree does have pretty little red flowers, but they're just not pretty enough for this prime location in my garden, so it's gotta go. So I guess one advantage of it being in this raised bed is that I can just, I don't know, take out all the soil around it and then refill the bed afterwards. And hopefully that'll mean that I do a little bit less damage to the tree. Will it survive? I hope so. Nature is resilient and I feel like Sinead will take good care of it. But obviously, the fewer roots I damage on the way out, the better. So this tree seems pretty firmly rooted in here. I think this is gonna take quite a while. So this is where I'm at, and this is where I'm going. And when I see you again, hopefully this tree is in that bucket. Well, that was pretty hard work. I really hope this tree survives. I think it'll be okay. I didn't have to cut too many roots, but I did get a couple underneath there. And basically what I was doing was poking this in, loosening the soil, and then fairly gently pulling it out with my hands. So I feel like it's mostly intact. And yeah, let's get it into its new temporary home. So you have lots of permaculture type people who recommend observing the land before planting any trees or doing too much. But then you also have the people, ooh, I've got little baby plums coming along. Lots of them, it looks like. But you also have people that say the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago and the next best time is today. So I just got going with the tree planting right on arrival, and I'm happy to have had this one, but it's time for it to move on to new pastures. Okay, that'll do. Time to plant some sunflowers. But first, let's prune off some of these dead bits. The shoots, other dead bits, more dead stuff. Let's try to send this tree down to Sinead's place looking its finest. I also might want to cut down the height a bit before I try to move it, but I'll make that decision a little later on. Okay. Oh, I've got this guy here looking pretty dead. And yeah, I could probably take the height down, but it's fine. So, on to the sunflowers. But first, I need to prepare the bed. Okay, the bed is prepared. Let's get these sunflowers into the ground. What do you think? Are they ready to go in? Yes, that's what I thought. Okay, job done. And there's definitely a chance that some of these are planted too close together. There's definitely a chance that some of them won't get enough sunlight. And there's also a chance that the slugs and snails will munch on them, because I've seen a few of those around. But they're definitely a lot better in here than they were in the seed tray. So I'm very happy to have this done. Let's give these little babies a water, and then I can move on to the next task. What that is, I do not know yet. So I'll finish up here, and I'll see you guys again soon for the next job. So as you can see, the garden is definitely in need of some serious attention, but I'm going to focus on the most pressing things at the moment, and right now, that's the fava beans. So I've eaten some lunch, had a bit of a break, and I feel like I've got another few hours of work left in me. And the next pressing matter is these guys, broad beans or fava beans. And my intention was to grow these just as a sort of experiment, and to chop them down before they actually made the beans, because if you do that, apparently more of the nitrogen goes into the soil rather than focusing on actually making the bean. But I let time get away from me, and these plants are filled with beans, so I'm going to pick them, and then I'm going to chop them off at the roots and leave the roots in the soil, which is apparently good for aeration, I've learned recently. And then I'm going to basically chop everything up and let it act as a mulch over this bed. One thing I wanted to point out that I'm a little nervous about, or very nervous about, is that some of the beans have been chomped at the roots, and I'm really fearful that this could be evidence of voles. And if it is, I'm in for some serious trouble. Because around these parts, voles are probably gardeners' biggest nemesis. I've had friends completely give up gardening altogether because they've just had an infestation of voles and haven't been able to get rid of them. So, you know, I'm a little worried, but I'm hoping Larry, who's a great hunter, can keep them at bay if he sees any. And in the meantime, I just have to push on and hope for the best, because that would be pretty bad news if they decided to move in. But let's talk about more positive things. I really am very impressed with this plant. Not only am I getting some beautiful beans, it also acts as a cover crop over the winter, probably keeping some of the weeds at bay. I get the beans, I get the mulch, I get the nitrogen fixed, and it just looks really cool in the garden, and it makes me very happy to see things growing in the winter, where I don't usually bother with a winter garden. So I feel like next year I could end up going big on the broad beans. I might try the lupins again, because they're another thing that looks really beautiful, though I didn't have much success with them this year. But yeah, really, really easy to sow the seeds, and they don't take much attention because obviously it's raining over the winter. So I'll be getting these in the ground again next year, and yeah, hoping for a bigger harvest. Okay, the beans are picked. Not many of them seem as big as they should be. There's lots of little small ones, but I think that's okay. I wasn't expecting any anyway. So I'm gonna come back and crack one of these bad boys open in a minute. But first, let me show you what else I've done. I've made this garden bed a little bit bigger and joined it with the cherry tree. I've pulled out some weeds from along the path, and I've also added ash from my burn pile down on the bottom terrace to this bed, along with some of this horse manure stuff. And I also watered the trees on my bottom terrace and added ash to the base of each one, which took about an hour. It takes a while, but I think the trees will be happy for it. Somebody in the comments recommended giving the trees some ash, the fruit trees especially, and so I did, and I'll be curious to see how they turn out. So far, the nashi and the pear are looking amazing, both pear trees, and the apple seems to be coming along as well. And all the other trees are looking pretty healthy, including my peach tree, which is showing some signs of little baby peaches up at the top of the foliage as well. And so it's been a long day, but it's been a super productive one, and I've gotten to most things I wanted to get done, except for the garden bed over there, which I'm going to turn into sunflower wall number 2. So even though the sunflowers are growing really fast in the greenhouse and sort of stressing me out, I won't have time today to finish that up, but I'm gonna make it the first job that I do tomorrow in the morning, and then I'm gonna get the second batch of sunflowers in there as well. But one thing I do have energy for is using the tool of joy to chop up these stalks. I'm gonna open a bean in a minute, and I'm gonna pull up a carrot or two because I totally forgot to thin these things, and they're obviously all very bunched in quite tightly, and I feel like I'm curious about what's going on in here. So I'm gonna pull up a couple and see what's happening. I expect not very much. I think they'll be pretty small and kind of embarrassing. Yes, this is a shameful carrot, and it's a lesson to thin them out before they get all crowded in. Let's see if I can find one that seems maybe a bit bigger. I love pulling carrots. It's always a lovely surprise or a very disappointing surprise. So, you know, I guess I'm growing a whole bunch of baby carrots, and when the time comes, I'll have a lovely little snack. So I'll keep them in here a little bit longer and yeah, revisit them later on. And in the meantime, I don't know, I guess I have like 2 bites there for a really slightly depressing snack. So, on to the beans. So I've never grown these in my life, and I don't know if I've ever really eaten them either. So if anybody has any recommendations for how to prepare fava beans, or also known as broad beans, do let me know. I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to cook them and then remove this outer layer. I'm also pretty sure they're supposed to be a lot bigger than this. So perhaps these are too small to really make them worth my while, but I'm gonna give them a try anyway. So if anyone has any tips or recipes out there, do let me know. And another thing I wanted to point out was this root came out as I was digging, and it's hard to see them now, but these little things here came out of the soil and they were white. And I'm pretty sure I've seen it before, that these are the things that go back into the soil and help fix the nitrogen. So I'm gonna dig this back into the soil, chop it up maybe, and chop it up with the stalks and get it back into the soil, and maybe that'll be helpful. So I have lots of very high hopes for this garden bed. There's all kinds of good stuff in here. And though the voles thing is a worry, I'm feeling positive and hope it produces well for me. I had my tomatoes and basil in here last year, and it did amazingly. And so a little bit more of the same would be really nice. So I'm exhausted. I'm just gonna carry on chopping up this stuff. And you'll see me tomorrow for some weeding as my first job, and then we're gonna see if we can get the corner things, corner plates attached onto the base of the Craic Shack. So, I'll see you then. Well, that was a very energizing start to my day. That was tough work. So I'm preparing the garden bed for another sunflower wall, and I still have lots more to do. So here's where I'm at, and I'll check in again very soon when the bed is ready for the sunflowers. Okay, job done, and as usual, that took way longer than I expected. But I did end up making the garden bed a little bit more fancy than I was initially expecting. I added some of my own compost from the terrace below, and I mixed that all in, which took a while. Then I added in some manure, and I mixed that all in as well. And then I got the rake out, flattened everything out, which was a weirdly enjoyable job. I really do like that job. And then I trimmed, and basically now I've got a really nice garden bed with lots of good stuff in there and a nice clear spot behind me as well. I also made this little mini bed over here and separated some of the soil away because this is going to be a future staircase. And I was doing it all amongst the ants. I feel like this is the place that the ants really love the most, and so I was fighting against the bitey ants as I was working, which wasn't massively enjoyable, but I got it done in the end. And I also added some manure and some of my own compost to these beds as well, for whenever I'm ready to actually finish these off and plant the stuff in there. So it's been a very productive little spurt of work, and now it's time to plant the sunflowers. But the day is getting on, and I'd really love to get to work on the Craic Shack after this. So let's do this with the snap. Well, that was an absolute mission, but if this goes how I think it's gonna go, I think this is gonna be a really beautiful addition to the garden and definitely worth all the time it's taken. I have some leftover sunflowers. Maybe I'll find another spot for those, or perhaps Sinead might want them. I also ended up adding sunflowers to the other side, which I wasn't gonna do, but just because I had so many, I figured why not? I don't really have any other plans for this bed right now, so the more sunflowers, the better as far as I'm concerned. So this has actually been pretty hard work. Planting so many things all at once is quite hard on the back, and the sun is out, as you can see, and it's been very hot, although I would say it's kind of a perfect day. I love putting in some hard work in the hot sun and coming away sweaty and gross, so that when I have a shower later, I really feel like I earned it. So it's been pretty busy. I also actually trimmed up here in preparation for making some sort of a garden bed. I want to move this stone over there, and while I have the trolley from my friend, I'm gonna haul a few more stones up and make this a lot nicer, and eventually get the lime tree in there. It does seem to be doing fine in the pot, but it'll definitely be happier in the ground. And we've got these two little dudes up here. How's it going, guys? Huh? How are you? Sleepy? Me too. What about you, Larry? How are you doing? Cuddly as always. So, let's go see if I can figure out how to attach this piece of wood to the corners of the Craic Shack. And for this job, I'm gonna need mega saw and a mega drill. So the big guns are coming out. Right now, the first task is to cut this into squares, and then I'll just get on with things and check in at the end. So I have one square, but unfortunately, the other one on this piece of wood snapped. So before I carry on sawing, I think I'm just gonna try to get this one attached, prove my concept, because the day is getting on, the sun is going down, and I really would like to get at least one of these things attached. So I have a sneaking suspicion that this bit is a little bit too wide for this plug. So I could either wait and go to the shops and get a smaller bit, or I could try it, and if I need to, I'll have to go back to the shops and get a larger plug. But I want to push on, so let's just give it a try and hopefully it works. Okay, I think these are too big, the holes. I mean, the plugs are too small, but I won't know until I try. So, let's give it a go. Hopefully, it lines up to where it's supposed to be. So it looks like it's holding, but I will actually want to level it off a bit. But the plugs seem like they're a fine size. Well, sort of. Once I get this in a little bit more, I think it'll be more sturdy. But I need to kind of put something under this corner so that it's level, so that when I attach the post, I don't have to faff around with cutting the bottoms of the post on some weird angle. So I realize that what's going on behind me looks pretty crazy. I promise you I have an idea in my head, and this is mostly proven the concept that it's gonna work, it'll attach. I'm not completely happy because it is a bit jiggly, so I might end up going into town and picking up some larger plugs and a smaller bit before I push on any more with that. But I'll do the rest of the corners off camera, and the next time you see me working on the Craic Shack, hopefully I'll actually be pulling out those pieces of wood and starting to make cuts and showing you my design and pushing on with actually getting everything vertical. So that's all from this video. I think it's been a really busy few days. I'm so happy with everything I got done in the garden. I'm mostly happy with this corner thing. It's sort of working as I planned. And it's basically just an absolutely gorgeous evening out here. The day was hot and the sun was out. And maybe it's a little too hot for this time of year, so I don't know how I feel about that necessarily, but it is really gorgeous and just gonna enjoy it. So, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one. I feel like I've got still a lot more work to do in the garden, loads more obviously on the Craic Shack, but I've made a good start and I'm definitely motivated to keep pushing on. So, thanks for watching as always. If you liked the video, please give it a like. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.